Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Tereza from freetoflour.com, where I share simple living on our European farm, sourdough, cooking from scratch, homesteading, and the honest, unfiltered version of it all. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. Today I am back in the kitchen with another round of recipe testing, and I want to be upfront with you about this one. Not everything in this video goes well. I tested 3 sourdough recipes this week. 2 of them I'm genuinely happy with. One of them was a lesson rather than a success. And I think that is actually worth showing you because real baking looks like that sometimes. And you deserve to see the full picture rather than just the highlight reel. And this is especially true for sourdough baking. Sourdough baking is influenced by so many different elements: the temperature, humidity, time of year, your starter, the flour, amount of water. Just any little bump in the recipe can totally alter the results that you get. And even people who bake sourdough all the time get fails. And in this video, you're going to get to see one of my fails. So a little bit of context, if you're completely new to my channel, why am I testing recipes? I run a recipe and homesteading blog called freetoflour.com. I'm in a big new recipe push stage right now before my 3rd baby arrives. And I pride myself on personally testing every single recipe on my blog numerous times under different conditions so that I can get the fails happening in my kitchen and maybe you don't have to get as many fails in your kitchen. So I will link all of these recipes below and talk about them a little bit more in depth as we go. But before I get into the recipes, a quick update on life here. We are still in the thick of it. I'm in my 3rd trimester. The farm renovation is ongoing, and all the beautiful chaos that comes with both of those things happening at once. Speaking about the reno, we are starting to get into some pretty exciting territory, and I know I haven't actually shared a whole lot of it with you guys. It coincided with my 1st trimester and my complete energy slump, where I felt like sharing nothing with nobody at all. And I just kind of moved from day to day. But now that the project is actually taking on a beautiful shape, I am curious, would you like to see more behind the scenes content of the reno? I am more ready to share now. And as things are coming together, I think it'll be pretty fun. But let me know in the comments below if that's something you'd like to see. My kitchen in our little guest house continues to be my anchor through all of this. There's just something really steadying about having a project to work on, something to test and taste and troubleshoot, even when everything else feels like it's in motion / slight chaos, especially then, actually. And speaking of troubleshooting, let's get into it. The first recipe that I tested, and once again, by the way, in this video, as with cooking and baking in general, I kind of weave or jump from one to the next. You know, I take a step, like first step in a recipe, then leave my dough to ferment, then move on to the first step of the next recipe. So if you find it difficult to follow along in what I'm actually doing, don't worry, I will link all the recipes down below and you can get a very organized step-by-step tutorial on my blog if you would like to try it at home. But the first one I want to talk about, at least, is my sourdough discard chocolate chip cookies recipe. And I'm going to tell you right now, these are the winners of the video. If you stick around for nothing else, stick around to see those. Those were absolutely delicious. If you only make one thing from what I tested today, make these. I used sourdough discard for these rather than active starter, which is something I want to talk about for a moment because I think there's a lot of confusion about when to use discard versus active starter, especially for young or new bakers. Discard, which is the portion of starter you remove before feeding, still has so much flavor and functionality left in it. It adds a slight tang, it contributes to texture, and it means you're not wasting anything. Every day when you discard your discard and you feed your starter, you can save it in a jar in the fridge and then use it when you're ready to bake. For cookies, discard actually works better than active starter because you want the flavor without the lift. And you're not trying to make these rise the way bread or focaccia rises. You just want that depth of flavor, and discard gives you exactly that. The result was genuinely one of the best chocolate chip cookies I have ever made. The edges were crisp, the center was soft and fudgy, and the sourdough tang is subtle enough that you might not even identify it. You just know that something is different, that it tastes more complex and interesting than a standard chocolate chip cookie. And one of my favorite elements of this is it is a little bit less sweet than the standard chocolate chip cookie, which I personally really love. I find a lot of baked goods, especially American baked goods, way too sweet. And so I kind of try to find that golden middle of the baked item tasting absolutely delicious without me feeling like I just swallowed an entire tablespoon of sugar. I have the full recipe linked on the blog and in the description box below. The second recipe is my sourdough blueberry muffins that I am actually topping with some sugar right now. And this one I would call a work in progress, which means it was good, but not yet great, and I don't know exactly why. The flavor turned out really lovely. The blueberries were generous, the crumb was tender, and the sourdough added a gentle tang that works beautifully with the sweetness of the fruit. But as you will be able to see in just a little bit, spoiler alert, they did not rise as much as I wanted them to. They were a little denser than an ideal muffin and a little flatter on top than I was hoping for. And I've been experimenting since shooting this video with different reasons why. And I think I have come to test the perfect blueberry muffin recipe. And that post is now linked in the description box below, and it is up on my blog. So blueberry season is almost upon us. I don't know if you go forage for wild blueberries, but foraging for wild blueberries is something that we love to do here as a family. It's such a fun family outing to all go in the forest and pick wild blueberries and freeze them and bake with them, and I just love that time of year so much. And so I was trying to get as many delicious blueberry recipes under my belt as I possibly could so that I can have a good use for all those lovely berries that we pick. This recipe also works really well with store-bought berries or any other blueberry that you like. And now for the one that did not work. The sourdough focaccia. I have been testing this sourdough focaccia and we absolutely love it. If you've seen my last video, you will actually see a super successful version of my sourdough focaccia. With this video, we are going back in time a little bit. The natural order of things is a little bit disrupted here, but I'm sure you will hang on with me and be able to follow along. And I included this failed footage on purpose because I think that we don't ever get to see, especially online, people failing with their sourdough baking. So if you want a comparison between a failed focaccia and an absolutely delicious focaccia, check out my previous video. I'm going to link it here up above so you can just scroll through it and see the deliciousness that a good focaccia is. But for this focaccia, because I was earlier on in the testing process, something went wrong and I know what it is, and so I fixed it. The focaccia was dense, it was flat, and generally just not edible. Although, I will say, with all my recipes, everything that I bake, even when it's a fail, we always eat everything. Because bread is bread and no one in this house is turning down bread. I know some people who dump their failed recipes. If you've got a family and kids, I highly suggest that you try to put it to good use. There are so many ways to troubleshoot a failed recipe. For example, for this dense focaccia, I just cut it in half and toasted it, and my kids loved it and we ate it all up. Alternatively, sometimes I'll just freeze the failed recipe for those in a pinch days where I really just need something to pull out of the freezer, and then I'll have this in my back pocket. When I thought about what went wrong with this focaccia recipe, two things stood out immediately, and that's why I fixed them in my next test. The first is that I think it was under-fermented. The dough did not get enough time to develop properly before I baked it, which means the gluten structure was not fully built, and the gas bubbles that give focaccia its open, airy crumb had not had time to form. And I think the second is that the dough was just a little bit too dry. There was not enough liquid in it. Focaccia dough should be very wet, almost uncomfortably so. It should feel like it's too wet to work with. And in just a few seconds ago, if you saw me working with it, it looked very dense already at this stage. So if you are troubleshooting a dense focaccia at home, start here. Give it more time to ferment. I would say minimum of 8 hours at room temperature, or generously warm room temperature, and longer is almost always better. And add more water than you think you need. The dough will reward you for it, and don't be scared of very liquidy dough. If you would like my true, tried and tested version, I will link it in the description box below. You can see in the photos that focaccia turned out beautifully. I actually love to call focaccia bread cake. It's just so airy, like a cake, and so delicious, but it's bread, which is just seems like the perfect combination. So that is the honest version of this week in the kitchen. One recipe I'm really proud of, one that is close but needed another round of testing, and one that taught me something useful that I took with me into the next round of tests that I completed. And that is actually what I love about recipe development. It's never just about the success. The failures tell you just as much and sometimes more, and I love how the failures sometimes wake up this side of me that's extremely driven and motivated, and really help me get right back in there and remake the recipe the very next day. All these recipes are now ready, including the muffins and the focaccia, like I mentioned, found at my blog, freetoflour.com. And if you are just getting started with sourdough and want a solid foundation before you dive into recipes like this, my free sourdough ebook is a great place to begin. I will link that in the description box below as well. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you have not already. And I will see you in the next one.